Hi, Nicole. Is this working for you? Oh.
Nyumba Upendo, Milwaukee. It just means I love you. Welcome to the Nyumba Upendo Show, the House of Love on WNOB 860 AM, 106.5 FM. I'm Kweku Amawasi, your host of this show. I'm missing my co-host, Dr. Alicia Mucci. I promise you she ain't left. She's going to be back next week. She's actually in the air right now, so make sure you say a special prayer for her, knowing how these friendly skies ain't been so friendly lately. Jermaine and Debo, and I feel good about this week. I'm so excited to be able to do it, and I was able to get my P&Ps from my mama. My mama doing strong. We're still going through, but yeah. So she's giving me permission to speak, as in it's in the tradition of our ancestors. but she's also given me a prayer that the words that will be spoken today will be beneficial and blessing. And today's show is don't waste a moment. We got a young man who's Milwaukee bred. He's moved out the city, but he's running for mayor, making Milwaukee proud, doing work here in the state of Wisconsin. And then on the second half of the show, we have Nicole Lawson Wilson, who's another Milwaukee native, no longer in the city, but she wrote a book called Epiphany. Don't waste your cancer. So on the second segment, I'm telling you, if you need a healing for your soul, you need that hope, you need that source of help. You want to hear the words of Nicole because her book is inspiring. I can't wait to hear her. I always try to dedicate this show to somebody. And Debo, I was, you know how you just scrolling sometimes and things just pop up. And I heard a story I'd never heard about the Fultz sisters. They were the first African-American quads ever born, or at least recorded. You heard of them?
No.
Okay, and the reason why I ask is because they were born in 1946, May 23rd. All of them was 3 pounds. And so the doctor who did it, you know, it's like one of them stories where white doctor kind of take advantage of the black families. Like the mom was deaf and was mute. The dad was a sharecropper. So literacy was kind of low, but they was like, this family's going to need some help. So they said, you know what? We're going to parade them around a little bit. So they would parade the babies around, but they was the cutest little girls. So Pet Milk said, hey, you know what? Let us do an endorsement with them. We'll give you a house. We'll give you a nurse and all of this. So they did it. And man, these young girls would go around just getting everything. The thing is, all their name was Mary, like almost like George Foreman kids. But it was Mary Louise, Mary Ann, Mary Alice, and Mary Catherine. Now I say all this to say this: from 1947 to 1968, Pet Milk paraded them around and everything like that. But the thing that still gets me a little bit is that doctor followed them, and they said he would do different experiments with them and whatnot. And he was experiencing doing something with high levels of vitamin C. And I've heard about controversial things and whatnot like that. But long story short, it was like he had did this for a while. But Mary Louise died at 45. Mary Ann died at 49. Mary Alice at 55. Only Catherine got to live to above 72. But the thing was, they all died of breast cancer. And so they didn't know if it had something to do with his treatment or whatnot like that. But I was like, to have quads and whatnot like that, I just thought it was a beautiful story. They did things with Althea Gibson, with Floyd Patterson, and met Truman, and met Kennedy. So they got a chance to do some beautiful things despite some of the other not so many things. So we just want to dedicate this story to the Fultz sisters as our ancestors of today, but also recognizing everything they went through. So man, but what can I say? Can you put our first person on, Brother Shondell Washington Spivey?
Righty. Let's get him up there.
Man, I was the school psychologist over at MEC when he was in the 7th grade. And so, man, I'm so proud of this young man, even though he went to the other rival school at Riverside, not that great Rufus King. Man, so proud of him. Class president where you just knew he was going to do something special. Went over to UW La Crosse, just turned it out over there, got a bachelor's in political science, went on to a technical college, and then got a technical diploma. Then went over to UW La Crosse again, got a master's in education. Now at the college on the other one, I ain't going to even say the name because I always say it wrong. So, Shondell, you're going to have to correct me where you're going to get your doctorate at Vertibral. And Cross still. But I look at your work in a small time frame. Man, you've been the director of Upward Bound over at UW La Crosse, one of those trio programs that could be in danger of being cut with some of the DEI work and things of that nature. But also, you've been on the school board over at La Crosse, and then you are now the executive director at Black. And if I have the acronym right, it's Black Leaders Acquiring Collective Knowledge. And so when I look at all of this, I was like, this young man done moved from Milwaukee and didn't come back. What did La Crosse have that Milwaukee didn't have?
That's a great question. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Great to have you on the show, Brother Shondell.
Thank you. Yeah, you know, when I made my decision to come to La Crosse, it was because I met a friend. I'm a trio dude. I was in Upward Bound Math and Science at Marquette University. I got into that program because of one of my mentors my freshman year at high school. He was a senior. His name was Marcus Bland, and he told me about the program, and that was like my introduction to college. And then he went to La Crosse, and he brought me up there a few times while I was in high school to just kind of meet folks and get connected. Kind of fell in love with the community and was like, oh, I'm gonna pick La Crosse, you know? And so then I went to La Crosse, and what kept me here, because I was very determined, like, hey, I'm leaving, getting my degree. I'm going back to Milwaukee, be with my people, right?
Yes,
But
sir.
as I got involved in a community here, there's actually a really strong Black community. And I say strong in the sense that we are here and we've been here for many years. There's projects like the Enduring Families Project that talks about the history of Black folks in lacrosse, such as George Edwin Taylor, one of the first Black men to ever run for president. And so learning some of that history, but then also being involved in the community, connecting with folks and realizing there's a need here that we can't unsee, right? Like I can't run away and go back home to it. I got to do the work here too. And so that's really the initial reason I stayed in lacrosse is there's work that has to be done.
No, okay, so I'm glad you say that because now the question becomes, okay, we're in Milwaukee, obviously WNOV, the oldest Black-owned radio station in Wisconsin. But if you're going for mayor, sort of like Obama, he said, I can't just be the president for Black people. I'm the president for all people. So when I asked you why you want to be the mayor of lacrosse, what was it that you learned in Milwaukee? And you said, oh, I see some commonalities from some things I learned growing up, but I also see some of these same things here in lacrosse that makes me think that, you know what, I have a real understanding of this city. I could really be the executive director of a whole city.
Yeah. So a lot of it is, I mean, there's this shared sense of struggle that we have across the state in general, right? Where we're going after dollars from the state to address issues that we have in our communities, be it unhoused issues, right? Issues of homelessness, issues of mental health, issues of poverty, and things of that nature. And we see those struggles here in lacrosse as well. The wealth divide, right? When I think about Milwaukee, I think of like the segregation and things like that. And lacrosse isn't necessarily, I wouldn't say segregated, but it's not exempt from having issues of systemic racism and institutionalized racism.
So as you think about that and you think about your campaign, what are some of the top things on your agenda? I heard you talking about dealing with the unhoused, dealing with mental health, dealing with poverty, things of that nature. Are those the things at the top of your agenda, or is it something else?
So there's a couple things. One is supporting small businesses in the area. I think, well, the reality is a lot of the dollars go to some of the larger cities, and lacrosse does not always see that. So we're trying to make sure that we promote, like, we have a, booming small businesses in this area, and they need support too, so that they can have longevity as well. So making sure we're supporting those small businesses, talking about expanding housing. And when I say expanding housing, there's two pieces to this, right? So being able to work with the unhoused populations and address the issue of homelessness in lacrosse, but then also being able to develop a variety of housing in communities that attract more people here into this area. The last thing, you said three, here's my third one, is community engagement. And so really looking at how are we building a lacrosse where everyone feels they are safe, valued, respected, and feel like they belong here.
So I guess the question I ask now kind of goes back to the beginning. What gives you the audacity? What gives you the thing, the sense to say, hey, I can do this? Why now run for mayor? Why you for mayor? What makes you think that, hey, out of all of the people that live in lacrosse, I am the person who was built to be able to take this this city to the next level?
Yeah. So the quick answer, I'm gonna say my ancestors, but what I will say is I've been in this community for 17 years. I've served in many different capacities. I've served as, like I said, I built a nonprofit here, co-founded it with a friend of mine to address issues in this city. I've worked on city committees, county committees. I've worked with former mayors, chancellors, presidents of institutions. I've done racial justice work in this community. I've done a lot of work with bringing communities together, right, across difference to address issues. And so the audacity is that I've been doing the work, and now it's important for folks to see that there are individuals that have done grassroots organizing, and the mayor office should be accessible to those individuals and not just to the elites.
No, I love that. I love that. And you kind of said this a little bit before, as far as like lacrosse doesn't get the largest parts of the dollar. So how do you see yourself working with like the larger counties like Milwaukee County, Dane County, to be able to do things where you say, working with you all will help lacrosse, but also I can see how this kind of synergy of us all working together works for all of Wisconsin?
Yeah. So a fun fact is 12% of the visitors a year are from Milwaukee, and
Oh,
they contribute to our economy, right? And so we definitely want to make sure we're partnering with our outside cities and cities across the state to ensure that we're developing a welcoming place when they're coming to visit. We host the state track meet, right? There's so many connected pieces to La Crosse's economy to other cities. The other thing I would just mention real quick too is Milwaukee. Well, I talk to folks here, and when they come here, some folks are moving here from Milwaukee. And so this is why Milwaukee also has to be invested in working with La Crosse as well, because also there's La Crosse folks who grew up here, live here, that moved to Milwaukee. And that's for a variety of reasons. It could be because they want a larger city and people move from Milwaukee because they want a smaller one, right? It could also be jobs, etc. And so making sure that we're all kind of working in tandem with each other to ensure that we're all creating a space for everybody, right? To feel like they're welcomed into whatever part of the city they choose to go to.
well, here at the Nyumba Upendo show, our focus is always on mental health at the intersection of life. So whether it be politics, education, economics, entertainment, what it may be. But the whole focus is always to come back with a higher level dealing with mental health. And so when I look at it, I try to do it from a spectrum of mental health, from mental wellness to mental illness. So I like to know, what are your plans to do things on a proactive state to kind of keep everybody from this mental wellness state, to keep people happy before it slides down? But for those cases where people do start to deteriorate from an emotional standpoint and they need extra services, because most of the time, specifically in Wisconsin, the prisons has become the de facto mental health systems and things of that nature, where people don't get help until it's like almost too late. So what are some of the plans of things that's already being done and things that you say, I want to continue, I want to grow this or make it better?
Yeah, so mental health obviously is an issue that is so interconnected with many other things.
Yes, sir.
And you can't address mental health, right, without addressing stability and safety with our most vulnerable populations. And so in La Crosse, there's a couple things that's happening. They're currently doing this like mental health mapping piece to address issues around mental health. We have so many new mental health providers that are now like not only just in the community, but they're also going into the schools. One program that I really am elevating when I talk about housing is Pathways Home, which essentially is taking care of our unhoused and unsheltered populations, ensuring that they have a house, but then also that we provide direct supports for them. And then providing those direct supports a lot of times will help them feel safe and stabilize them. And so some of that is also touching mental health issues if need be, if that's what they need, if it's AODA, et cetera. And so that's a real big program that's happening here to address some of those issues. But then the overall thing is I'm also a mental health counseling student, right? And so my big thing is, how do we break the stigma across generation, right? Across difference, to ensure that everybody is making sure that their mental health is at the forefront of their minds. And so working with organizations like the Great River Hub, Better Together is the other one. Various organizations like that are coming together to say like, hey, we have this issue, we need to address it in our young people and our adult populations, and make sure that everybody is, overall working to be mentally well.
Quick question, because obviously, like when you work in the body of politics, there's so many different people that's in that area where you have to have friends, you have to make allegiances, sometimes with people, what they say on the other side, who have different thoughts. But if the goals are the same, hopefully you should come together. Have you started to work with any other legislators, whether they be local or whether within the state, that's helping you to be able to come up together with plans where you can do things in like I said, like a synergistic manner?
Yeah, so I serve currently on the Governor's Equity Council, and so I'm connected to quite a few folks across the state that are all trying to work towards, a more equitable state, addressing issues around community engagement, business, right, and economics. Also engaging around policy and conversations around policies and making sure that they're equitable for everyone. So there's that type of stuff. I'll be honest with you, some folks have not responded to me from the other side of the aisle when I reach out to have conversations to address some of the issues that we see. But nevertheless, I have the ability and have shown that I have the ability to work with my worst enemy as long as our goal is the same. And in this case, if our goal is to make La Crosse a better place, I can work with anybody to do that.
Yeah, and you kind of talk about that. What has been some things outside of maybe some people not reaching back when you say we have the same goals that's kind of surprised you about being in the election, having your name actually in a mayoral race?
One, and this is going to sound wild because I know that I do a lot of work in the community, but the overwhelming community support, like, I mean, it is is such an honor, right? Like, I told folks I was running, I'm like, I'm thinking about running, and then I was like, nope, I'm running. I'm gonna run for mayor. And I've had people like literally just break down and cry in front of me, right? I've had folks call and tell me stories about this one a lady. She called me and she said, Shondell, I got to tell you this story. And I was like, okay, tell me. And she was like, my daughter was looking at something at like some sort of like postcard, and she seen your face and she said, oh my God, mommy, he looks like me and he's running for mayor. That's awesome. Like, I want to do something. So we got like 10-year-old kids wanting to volunteer, right, to make sure that I win this election. And so that's just really awesome to see.
Now, see, I love that, and I love that enthusiasm. One thing that I heard about politics is this, with you kind of being like a neophyte to the political arena, they say people come in to do good, but then they stay to do well. What are the things that you're doing to prep yourself? So you say, you know what, I'm gonna hold true to the promises that I keep to the people. I'm going to make sure I stay dealing with the grassroots of the people. What's your word to the people to say, hey, I'm going to get connected, and even when things get tough, if it even costs me my political life, but it's best for the people, this is how you know you got the best person for the job.
The best thing for me is I have my community, right? I have my community that's going to hold me accountable, and my community is made up of a variety of people who say, "Hey, Shondell, we're rooting for you." I used to do these roundtables when I first started, and at one of the roundtables, this Hmong lady, she said, "When you get in office, don't forget about us," because so often people come and have conversations with us, and they forget about us. And I'm like, I want to make sure, like, I've held on to that for the last 4 months, right? Because I want to make sure that I don't forget about the people. And when I make the statement of, hey, I'm a grassroots organizer, community organizer, I'm running for mayor so that we can have more of us and see more of us in these offices and positions to make change, I have to hold on to that, right? Like, and be true to myself about that and make sure that I'm touching base with my community, even while I'm in office. Because I can't forget about the people that helped me get there, right?
Right, we can't forget about the people. And listen, we're running low on time. We're coming up against the break, but I just want to give you a chance to give your closing words as far as how people might be able to help you, how people might be able to support you, what your commitment and your promise is to the people of La Crosse and to the people of the state who might benefit from you being the mayor of La Crosse.
Most definitely. My goal is to build a La Crosse where everyone belongs, right? Where they feel safe, valued, and respected. In addition to making sure that we're connecting with all of our sister cities and ensuring that we're doing what we need to do, what's best for Wisconsin. If you want to support me, you can check out my website. It's shundellforlacrosse.com. We need help, right? Financial. So if you want to donate to help the campaign, if you want to volunteer for the campaign, if you want to host a fundraiser or anything, you want me to come to your city, etc., feel free to reach out at Shundell for Mayor, FOR Mayor at gmail.com.
And that's got a good ring to it. Shondell for mayor, the former president of the Riverside.
Go
Man,
Tigers.
hey, it's really honestly, man, it's a pleasure talking to you. I wish you the best. You always have a space here to be able to voice your comments after you become mayor to talk about how we can make Wisconsin better. We'd like to thank you for joining Nyumba Upendo on WNOV 860 AM, 106.5 FM. We're going to be back on the other side with Nicole Lawson Wilson, author of Epiphany. Don't waste your cancer. Shondell, you might want to stick around and hear this. This is a powerful story. We'll see you on the other side.
time now to reveal it. I've been waiting for a long time.
Welcome back to the Nyumba Upendo show, man. We just having too much fun here. If you hear what Debo be saying in the background, I'm gonna just go live so y'all can hear. Hey, listen, man. You know how like sometimes you go to school with a person, but you don't see them for years, but they still hold like a special place in your heart. Well, my next guest, man, she probably don't even remember this. Me and Nicole went to Samuel Morris together and Rufus King. And when I started middle school, I think I was like 4'6". And I remember I was trying to fix my locker. And so it's like this grown woman next to me. I said, can you help me fix my locker? Because that was my first time with a combination. And she was like, I don't know how to do it either. She was about 5'6". That's always you in the 6th grade, Nicole.
About 5'6", about the same height I am now, 5'6", 5'7".
When she said that, I was like, I thought this was a grown woman teacher, and she was my student. But I'm gonna tell you, this is the biggest thing, and I don't even know if you remember this. I was one of them kids who played too much, you know. And I remember I was on the bus one time. I did something to this one girl. Her name was Angela Gasson. Me and Angela Gasson grew up together, went to Green Bay. And man, she hit me about like 3 times. And you know, I was a quick fighter back then. But I was like, this is a girl. I'm not about to fight her. So I just put my arm up and I blocked it. And then everybody at the school was like, oh, she beat you up. She beat you up. And you know, when you little, that stuff gets you. And Nicole came to me and she said, I see what you did. She said, I'm proud of you, or something to that extent, to say, like, I know why you didn't hit her back. And that was one of those things that happened in your mind where you say, like just sets a precedent. Like, I did the right thing and I was rewarded in another way. So I'm just so appreciative. And she got a birthday tomorrow and came on our show. So I'm so grateful for you. Left Milwaukee like everybody else, all the good talent do. Went down to Alcorn State, got her degree, working in the health field now. But as we kind of turn to a more serious thing, Nicole, I read your book and I told my wife, I said, this might be one of the best autobiographies I ever read.
Wow.
And the reason why I say that is because it's a quick read. It's an easy read. But I told my wife, I said, it's like a Mike Tyson fight. It's like, it's not that long, but it's like punch after punch after punch. And it's just never a dull moment. It's one of those like lick your fingers and you turn the page, and you wrote a book called Epiphany, Don't Waste Your Cancer. And so the first thing what I just want to ask you is this, is like, what made you write that book? Because, you know, you talk about so many personal things. What made you say at one time, I have to share this story?
Wow, I'm glad you asked that. Thank you for having me. So after I went through my cancer journey, I felt a need to talk about it. And I've been a very private person most of my life. But as people knew that I had this experience and they asked questions and I began talking about it, people kept telling me, you know, you need to tell that story. You need to say something about this. Other people might be healed or blessed by this story. And I kept thinking about it and I was like, you know, I don't know. I didn't know if I was ready to have the vulnerability enough to allow myself to tell that story. So writing a book makes you very vulnerable. You have to expose things that may not feel so good. Okay. So I decided, you know, it's time. I just prayed about it and I said, it's time. And I started working on the book. Had a person who was very instrumental in helping me write the book. And I got it finished and I published it. And it's been a blessing to me and a blessing to a lot of people from the responses I've gotten since then.
No, it's a beautiful book, like I said, from beginning to end. And I think one of the things, and I read every chapter and I got questions for every chapter, but like now as I think and I have you here, one of my big questions is like most people think in the beginning though, how did you even know you had it? Like, was it something that was like a genetic predisposition in your family? Did you just do a regular, you know, mammogram? Did you do, what did you do? How did you know? And then when you found out, like as soon as you found out, what was going through your mind?
Okay, so my mom is a breast cancer survivor, and her sister is also a breast cancer survivor. I had been having mammograms because of them having breast cancer for a while, just to make sure I was okay. Every year up until when I found out, my mammograms came back fine. 2020 of October of 2020, I found out my mammogram didn't come out fine. And the year before that, I had a perfect result. So I went on, and when I found out that, of course, they have these tests. And let me talk about that too. This test is called a BRCA analysis test. And people who've had breast cancer are usually familiar with that. They go into detail about kind of researching if, when you have this cancer, where did it come from? Is it genetics or et cetera? How about I had the test? It didn't show any variant of where my mom or my aunt had it. Mine showed non-variant, so it was not connected even to their breast cancers. No, it's still not known exactly where mine came from. All I know is that it was estrogen and progesterone positive. Um, Now, I will say this, and I will put that in there. When I knew about the bracket test years ago, I did try to get the test done through insurances and all that. Well, unfortunately, my insurance at the time would not allow me to do that without paying over $3,000, and that just wasn't in the budget. So, of course, I opted not to have that test during that time. But as I was diagnosed, I was able and given that test without a charge. But again, like I said, it showed non-variant.
And so I want to take the people back a little bit because I asked that question kind of knowing the answer from reading it. And I want you to talk about this aspect of it because, you talk about your dad, recently passed and after kind of being in that sandwich generation, taking care of your dad, taking care of, your husband, your two daughters. But then you finish, you get your MBA and you're like, hey, I got a chance for promotion. But unfortunately, it takes you to Dallas away from your family where you kind of living in two households. But you get this information while you're in Dallas by yourself. So my bigger question is, with all that going on, we know we have a physical condition, but what did that do for you emotionally and mentally? And how did you just find the strength to be able to deal with it when you're seemingly physically alone?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. And thank you. Um, when you get that diagnosis, most people, like I and some other people that I know, you're in disbelief. And being away from home, that was really a challenge. When I got that diagnosis, I was at the OBGYN. She's the one who would administer me getting the mammogram exam. And I called my husband on the phone so he could hear too, because he was not in Dallas. He was in Mississippi, where I'm living now. So I got that phone, and the doctor proceeded to tell us about the diagnosis and so forth. And we had to do it over the phone. And I just sat there. I sat there emotionless because I was in disbelief. I don't think I understood exactly what was going on until I returned to that apartment and I sat there by myself, and the tears just started to stream down my eyes, down my face, I should say. And it took me to a place that I immediately felt like I was in a depression because I walked around oblivious to the fact, even believing for a couple of weeks, even going to work and coming back. Couple weeks, like, this is not me. They got the wrong person. They had the wrong, test.
So you weren't feeling anything. Like you said, I still feel the same. I still feel good.
Right, right. And I did. And I just couldn't believe it because I didn't feel any lumps, bumps. I had no signs and symptoms of a typical person who finds something in their breast. And I was adamant about doing my breast exams every month. I have been doing that since I was 15 or 16 years old, ever since I've learned how to do it. So it just shocked me. I was in shock.
I want to go through your book and I want to go through it chapter by chapter. We're not going to rush. We get through what we do. If we don't get through it, you're going to have to come back.
Oh, no problem.
But we'll do it. But what I want to ask you right now is we kind of get into the deep of it. Somebody's listening to this, somebody who's newly diagnosed or somebody who's waiting on the return of a biopsy or maybe somebody who had it and went through it and just hearing this is kind of re-triggering in some ways. What you wrote this book, Epiphany, after all of the advice, but you still had to come to it. What do you want all of those individuals who are listening to know? What's the word for their soul you have?
So I want you to know that the diagnosis of breast cancer is not a death sentence. With medical technology and the things that we know today and that they have access to, it is a treatable disease. But what I really, really want the people to know is don't waste the moments. Don't waste your moments in your life thinking that you're going to die. Don't waste your time thinking, this cancer has me. I want you to make sure that you keep your mental health as well as your physical health as much as possible intact. Have a positive outlook on life and continue to live. Live. Don't live waiting to die. Don't live looking for it to die. Make cancer work. And I do mean work to get your attention. Make cancer work to know that you're not going to give up because your
You
family needs you.
and you know, and I want to kind of go into the book now, and I love how you had it. It's always amazing. Like, you know, we went to high school together, and I always remember you being, you know, a very like intelligent young lady, very always nice, like somebody who you never heard anything bad about, like Nicole Lawson at the time, now Nicole Lawson Wilson, was just one of those sweet young ladies that everybody respected, like admired in a sense. But when I'm reading in your first chapter, The Awakening, I was like, wow, I didn't know this. You said at 15, I had to grow up in ways I didn't know. And when I think about that, I think about the things we suppress or we think that we got over, but we really didn't. But then when other news come, all of those other things came up. And you talked about this awakening, taking you back to when you were 15. Kind of guide us as we, you know, roll through this book in chapter 1, The Awakening, why you chose to start that way.
Thank you. So I talked about growing up fast at 15. And the reason I go into that, and I won't give away too much of the book, but my parents divorced. And so this two-parent household with the foundation that I had already been given and had grown up with was no more. And that was different. It was a difficult time. So I found myself having to grow up and be the big sister and do things that, a 15-year-old might not have to do. I found a job. I had to do things and help out. And it wasn't at a point where I was negatively impacted, but it was at a point that I think my stress began. You know, we tend to have a lot of stress in our lives and we don't know how to deal with it. And I don't think I was equipped for that at 15. And now, when something else that's a life threatening event happens, it brought all those emotions out, all those things that I had kept inside. And it wasn't easy for me to talk about that at first. Being 15 and thinking about, I had this stress on me. I had to take on extra roles and go to school and make good grades, all the things that your parents want and desire for your life. You continue to do because that's the way you've been brought up, your foundation, right? So I, went back and I dug deep and I said, I'm going to talk about this because some people have those things they haven't healed from when they were in their teens or early things, or have those things, and it's something that you need to release so you can live a life and continue to be healthy and happy.
No, you know, and I'm so glad you put that in because, you know, obviously as a psychologist, when I work with families, sometimes older people be like, "Well, what stress, what problems a kid got? You got your house paid for, you got this." I was like, "Listen, you want to have somebody before you need somebody in the way that you think you do. And also, you never know what somebody else is going through because what's traumatizing or stressful for one might not be for another person. But if that person has somebody that they can talk with, they learn healthy ways not to bury those emotions. So just thank you for that. And I'm gonna let the people read the rest of chapter 1. So I'm gonna skip over now to chapter 2. And what I love about these chapters, they're so quick hitting. It's like if you don't want a whole Snickers bar, you got the little mini Snickers. It's like you just got these little mini bites, but it's a whole bag of them. And the second one kind of gets into it where you say the known and the unknown, and you start talking about actual going in for the biopsy. Like we hear that and say, okay, well, what happened? What's the results? But you talked about like, and this was painful, and it was uncomfortable. Can you talk about what it is just to go in to get the testing done?
Sure. So we as women, a lot of us fringe at the thought of going to get a mammogram at all because it involves pressing your breast tissue in a machine so it can see the density and if anything is wrong. And it's a little bit uncomfortable for most of us. So when I had to have the biopsy past having the mammogram, the doctor came in and she began to, give me some numbing medicine, which was an injection into my breast. And the numbing medicine for me didn't uh, do everything that it was supposed to do. I even told her during the process, I said, I'm still feeling it, and she's like, well, let me give you a little bit more. And for some reason, I didn't get as numb as most people were. And so when she went in to do the biopsy, I could feel the clipping and I could hear it. So the feeling and the clipping together, hearing all of that, of course, I cringed. It hurt. I had never felt any pain like that before, so it was a different experience. I know some people have the numbing and it's fine and it works out well. For me, not so much. But I felt when she clipped, I felt and heard when she snipped, and it was a pretty traumatic experience for me at that point. And then afterwards, after that, like I said, I'd never felt any lumps, any bumps or anything. But after I had that biopsy, I could feel the lumps and the bumps. It's like I could feel them that hours, and they stayed there until they were removed.
So now, as you think about this, one of the things that gets me, like with choices, when you start talking about, you were thankful that you had good insurance, and you're talking about some of the things insurance won't cover. If a person doesn't have insurance, what would happen to them emotionally, mentally, and the progression physically of the disease if not able to be treated because of lack of insurance or funding?
Well, I know that there are a lot of places, the American Cancer Society, the National Breast Cancer Foundation. Some of those are resources that you can reach out to, and they will or can help. There are a lot of things, if you start Googling online or pulling up things on social media about breast cancer, there are some places that do have resources that are available. But it's still a big problem because people don't realize the expenses that go along with having breast cancer and having the treatment that you need. And when, I'm advocate for telling people, use your resources, try to find out anything you can to if you need help or don't keep a closed mouth on this because it is so expensive and so costly. Just for example, just to remove my breasts, each one of them were over $50,000 just for
Wow,
tissue
$50,000.
per breast. Yeah. So
Wow.
I opted to have a double mastectomy. I only had breast cancer in my right breast, but I opted to double mastectomy. But it was over $50,000 just to remove the breast tissue. That wasn't redoing them. That wasn't the reconstruction. Just $50,000 per breast, over $50,000 just to take away the breast tissue that had the cancer in it. So those things, I mean, when you're facing that, if I hadn't had insurance and I still had to meet deductibles and so forth, but if I
Yeah.
hadn't had insurance, I don't know what I would have done. I would have reached out to those resources that I knew, but that's not to say that I would have been able to get the best care that I felt like I've gotten so far.
And so this is another reason. This kind of lends to the next chapter where you say what I need to know. And you talk about this being a members only club, and with you sharing such intimate, vulnerable things, it gives people hope and knowledge that they wouldn't. One of the things you had talked about on there was applying for FMLA. Like, how does all of this stuff that I'm going through, how do I not let this affect my regular life, especially my job, where the insurance is coming from? What was your experience like with FMLA? Was your company, were they helpful? Did you find a lot of kickback or negativity from them?
So at the time, I was working for the Department of Veteran Affairs. I was at the
Ooh.
yeah, I was at the hospital in Dallas, and so I was, I had to talk to my supervisors and collaborate what was going on, and they told me to go ahead and apply for FMLA. And if anybody is familiar with FMLA, FMLA is used as a tool to keep your job while you're out, but
Yeah.
it's not a paid leave.
Yeah, and
It's
it's a Family Medical Leave Act. So
right.
you know what it is, FMLA. I'm sorry, everybody,
Right,
but
no problem, no
go ahead.
problem. Yes, so it's not a paid leave. If you have time, saved up, you can use your time
Yeah.
towards maintaining your paycheck, but it's not a paid leave. So my experience was actually good. Let me tell you why. And I had not been out in Dallas very long. I had gone out there for a program I had been chosen for opportunity to cross train and in a way to move up to in a higher level position. And so I had only been there since June. October, I found out about the breast cancer. But they had a pool. Once I applied for FMLA, that process went pretty well. But they had a pool, and I didn't have a lot of vacation or sick leave saved up. They had a pool where people who become sick or ill people who have excess amount of sick leave can donate. And
Oh,
I
wow.
was fortunate enough that the people that I was surrounded with, supervisors and so forth, who knew how to, told me where to go and who to talk to and to navigate that process, helped me where I was able to continue to get a check even after I had exhausted all of my leave for another 3, almost 4 months. People had donated that much leave, and some of them knew me, some of them didn't. And I think that was exceptional because everybody does
Beauty
not.
of the human spirit, yes. Hmm. Now, when you talk about like even these strangers, now I know you also talk about like how important it was for you to have this circle of friends that you could talk to, that you could confide in, for the things outside of FMLA that maybe you don't want to share with everybody. I know you were very vulnerable in this book, but I'm sure still some things you kept in and that you should keep in. But for a few people in your circle, you had them to be able to share that. What? How did you find that circle, especially being in Dallas, and what did they mean to you?
So I've always had a, I guess, smaller circle of friends. Some of them still from high school, some of them from college days, and sorority sisters that I'm a part of. Shout out to Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
Oh, I love.
But I was just able to reach out to those closest to me. And I want to say in Dallas, I had one of my besties lives in Dallas, so she was close to me. And I was just able to talk to them about some things that, I wanted them to know. And I was glad they were there for me. Some days they would call and I was emotional and I would just hold the phone. I mean, when I decided to, express to them what had happened about being diagnosed with breast cancer, a few of them just held the phone. They didn't know what to say, but I needed to just know they were on the other line.
I'm gonna ask you to hold on. We're coming up against a break. I hope you can hold on till we end out. I want you to close the show with us. Listeners, you're listening to WNOV 860 AM, 106.5 FM. Nyumba Upendo, the House of Love. We'll see you on the other side with Nicole Lawson Wilson. Upendo Show on 860 AM, 106.5 FM, The Voice, WNOV, the oldest black radio station in Wisconsin. If you're just now joining us, you've missed some great things. We're here with author Nicole Wilson. She wrote Epiphany, Don't Waste Your Cancer. And Nicole, we're kind of like at the closing part. So we're going to have you come back. We're going to open it up for some questions for the audiences and everything. But I just want to go real quickly with some of the things that in your chapters, you say good people don't deserve cancer. And I just thought that was so powerful because he's like, man, I didn't try to do everything the right way. And I didn't have some ups and downs in life. And then this comes like, why? So what's your question or what's your answer to the people that may be going through this and wondering, why me?
Well, I struggled with even writing that chapter. Good people don't deserve cancer. And I laugh at it now because that's the way I felt at the moment. I was like, I've done everything I'm supposed to do. I've tried to be a good person. And, I've tried to do this and I've continued to do that. I've been faithful in my religious practices, faithful as being a mom, a wife, a sister, all those things. And we say, well, why does this happen to me? Why am I chosen? Why me? And I pondered with that for a while. And I thought, I had to change my thought process on it. I had to say, not me. I look back at it now and I was like, God gives us a test. And he wants us to rely upon him. And I have to remember in that moment that's why.
No, I'm sorry. I was thinking because in the next coming chapters, you talk about I had to get this cry out and this release, but the release wasn't the cry. The release was like almost what you were kind of saying before. It's like you not a superhero or survivor complex, but you're a person who was always the one helping other people. You didn't know how to ask for help, but you said after coming out of all of this, I kind of became a different person. Can you just speak to that real quick as far as saying, let me humble myself. Let me accept this help that I don't really want to have to get it, but I need it. And I've been there for other people. So now it's okay for me to get this help.
Yeah. I think I was born with a servant spirit, like you said, as a younger person, and me, I was always kind of like, oh, it's going to be okay. I'm going to help you or whatever. So I think I was born with that. And you become this person who's always helping, always, doing so much for everyone else that you don't realize that you don't know how to accept help. You don't even know how to ask for it. At least I didn't. And so when it became a point where I couldn't do and couldn't be the one who's takes on everything and solve all the problems, I struggled with that. I really, really did. I had to learn how to accept people's help. Not that I wasn't thankful. I was always thankful, but it was just hard for me to not be the one who was giving the help. But I learned, and it made me appreciate more and see the beauty in people, because I had a lot of people come through for me. I did. And I'm so thankful.
One of the things, and I want you to kind of think of your closing words for this, because obviously we didn't get through the whole book, but that's for people to come get. So I want you to tell people where they could get your book. And the one thing you was like, people need to go to the doctors, but the last thing that you end with is just live. Kind of give us that hope as we hear all of this story that gives us so many emotions, but knowing that, after I ring that bell, just live, even in the moment.
Yes, and that's very important. We get so caught up in the things that we do that we forget that we need to just live, to remind ourselves, you definitely need to go have your healthcare checks yearly. You definitely need to do, what you've been doing, your routines for your family, your loved ones, and all those things. But don't forget that my title is Epiphany, Don't Waste Your Cancer. And I don't want anybody to waste their cancer. See, my story was breast cancer, but your cancer can be anything that's troubling you that you have not let go of. Mm-hmm. And I want people to realize that you need to release those things so you can live in the moment, to enjoy the moment, and don't waste the moment.
Thank you, Nicole. I so appreciate you. We're going to have you back. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming on. And in the spirit of that, Supreme More Omakande is doing something called You Need Therapy. And it's a whole panel that's going on at Safe and Sound, 4422 West Leon Terrace tonight from starting at 6 o'clock. So please join us. And join us next week where we'll have Dr. Alicia Mucci back with us as the co-host. You've been listening to Nyumba Upendo on WNOV 860 AM, 106.5 FM, Nakupenda, Milwaukee.